Hey everyone, welcome back to the Sustainable Act, the podcast where we explore the power of media, culture, and grassroots action in shaping a more just and sustainable world. I am your host, Smiley Krana, and today's guest is someone who truly embodies what it means to be a changemaker. Joining us is JC Arce, a social entrepreneur, community leader, and sustainability advocate working at the intersection of business, culture, community, and government. At just 22 years old, JC has already left an undeniable mark, whether it's shaping youth policy for the Green New Deal, leading economic development projects that create opportunities for refugees, or building Kaleidoscope Foundation to empower impact-driven leaders worldwide. JC, I am so excited to have you on the podcast today. You're doing so much impactful work and somehow are balancing it all.
Hi, Smiley, and it's such an honor to be here with you and to join the Sustainable Act. I am such a huge fan. And I just want to start this off by saying that anything that I do, I'm able to do because I have such great community and support around me. And it really takes a village to do this kind of work. And a lot of the things that I think about, you were just mentioning, how do I balance all of this? Is how to cultivate a healthy, sustainable movement, one that is resilient, not just in a climate sense or environmental sense, but it has that emotional tact where people feel safe and people feel empowered to share their ideas, and they can really drive that agency in the work that I'm leading and we're doing together. So.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. And I think we're so aligned. We had a little chat before we started recording, and I just feel like so positive about this conversation. I feel like we already have a lot in common, and I'm just so inspired by you and everything that you've been able to accomplish so far, and so excited to dive more into all of this. And today we're gonna dive into what seeing like real change across these different sectors that you've been involved in. I was thinking we could talk a little bit about how culture plays a role in sustainable and economic development and the power of grassroots action in tackling climate challenges. Plus, which is so exciting, we're going to chat a little bit about LA Climate Week 2025, which is coming up very soon. So let's get into it, JC. Welcome to the Sustainable Act. So I was wondering, let's get started with sort of like your background, your journey. Like you've built such a dynamic career. It sounds like you've been in a few different spaces and been able to intersect your different type of work together with all these cross-sector impacts. And at also like at such a young age, which is very inspiring. So can you share a little bit about what led you down this path and like the experiences that shaped your journey?
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned experiences because a lot of the reason why I'm here is because of my lived experiences as a BIPOC, first generation gay and formerly homeless youth, and also someone that was raised by immigrant parents. Um, I like to say that anything worth doing is worth risking falling flat on your face for. And growing up, I that's all I experienced. I don't I think I'm learning just now how to build long-term stability, but I had many adversities growing up that have informed me in the way to navigate challenge and barriers of entry that not just myself, but so many people across all ages, across so many different communities experience in their day-to-day lives. For me, that looked like having to leave school at 13 for half a school year because I was rendered immobile. I had a cancerous tumor developing in the lower part of my body, so I couldn't even sit upright. Never mind do basic tasks to care of myself. And I had to go through aggressive treatment to overcome that, which I'm happy to say that I did. And then at 15 years old, becoming homeless. and then trying to build stability for myself, navigating a global pandemic, to countless failed startups between 17 and 21. Um, those lived experiences alongside the trials and tribulations that any young person in America, alongside the identities that I mentioned earlier, um, it was hard. Like I'll just say that. Like it was just hard. Um, but I am the kind of person we were just talking about, our astrological signs, and my natural proclivity in the way that I navigate situation is that I I just, well, especially coming, how do I say this? Actually, let me contextualize in the moment I realized I had a sense of agency. Um, there was a moment I had the very first night I became homeless. I was talking out loud to myself. And as cliche as it sounds, I was sitting at a park bench. Imagine it's pitch black with one beam of light in front of me emanating from a lamppost. And the squirrel walks into the light, and I say to it, in other words, just me talking to myself, it's just me and you, bud. I got nothing to my name and nobody around me. And it just kept repeating that line. I have nothing and nobody around me. I have nothing and nobody around me. I have nothing and nobody around me. And then something clicked. What was me processing a rather depressive line was a turned into a very cathartic moment where I realized being like growing up in New York City at the time, going to school in a very privileged area, Greenwich, Connecticut, of all places. Um, my parents worked very hard, my family worked very hard to expose us to so much privilege and resources. Not that we can necessarily tap into it, but making it known that it was there and opportunity is there. And that line, I have nothing and nobody around me, turned into this sentiment of, wow, that means I have nothing to lose and everything to gain. So any progress moving forward is much more than I had yesterday. Um, and so as a business person or social entrepreneur, I think that was one of the first, sorry, that was one of the first experiences that I had where I was like, there is no risk here because I have nothing to lose anymore. And so moving from that moment, trying to figure out how to overcome homelessness, I just had this unrelenting fervor to work hard or to apply my intellect and my passions and talents around art, this entrepreneurial spirit that I was discovering at the time. My studies, I love learning, and also um, learning about myself and connecting with other people. I love doing all of that, and channeling it into ideas or opportunities to do something fun and creative, whether for my community in Boston, for the Boston Climate Strike, or to building a game studio, going through TechStars for that. It was this just like enamoring feeling of like I can do it and I have nothing to lose. But I have maybe some, if not everything, to gain going through that. And that was a very empowering experience.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing. That like gave me chills as you were talking about just like it just like made me think about like the amount of resilience that you built through these like experiences that frankly like is not like a normal childhood, and that like all these like turbulence and struggles that you had to go through, and how you came out on the other end creating so much impact and giving back to the community. And like I just want to take a moment and just admire you and for your strength, and like and how you did good with that. Like, it could have, and you had every right to like be mad at the world and do whatever, but you chose to do good, and you've left such a good like mark on so many communities, I'm sure, over your years. And yeah.
Can I add something, actually? I would be remiss to say all of that without mentioning the fact that I mentioned this earlier, like it really does take a village. I think other people, not that I think, I know that other kids, for example, and other people who come from similar backgrounds or lived experiences did not have the opportunities or the opportunities to meet certain people, strangers that I've been able to just meet as I'm navigating my journey, who met me and saw the potential in me and just said, "Hey, I'm going to take a chance on you and I'm going to support you in what I can." Maybe that's being a mentor. Maybe that's referring me to their close friend that maybe has gone through the similar experience or knows a way to navigate being first gen to getting into college or um, countless people from all the communities that I've lived in or interacted in, strangers who have invested in me and saw that potential. So I just really want to like make kind of space for that, and acknowledge like, you know, people always ask like, is it nature or nurture as to why someone becomes the person that they are at a given moment? I mean, I think it's both. And I would not have succeeded in the way that I have without all those people. So I'm very grateful for them.
Mhm. I love that. And it kind of like it's a nice segue into my next question, which is largely about storytelling and storytelling and activism. And you're telling your story, and there's so much power in telling your story. And that's the whole like purpose of the sustainable act as well, as we invite stories and we inspire action through storytelling. And I just did a workshop recently as well, which was all about utilizing storytelling in climate activism. And I think there's such a sincere and um, just a sincere amount of like connection and empathy that's fostered through connecting with other people when you share your story. And so I appreciate you telling us your story and opening up. And I also want to ask, like, how do you feel like storytelling, whether it's through policy, media, or community initiatives, help create lasting change?
That is a great question, and I'm honored that you're asking that because I do not see myself as an expert in this at all. Although people I've gone, I think I've been well received in any speaking engagement I've done. Um, I mean, I also have many creator friends in the environmental space who have just said that you are great at storytelling on a just person to person basis. More people need to hear that. I'll be honest with you. I personally, public storytelling like that has been a mountain that I've been climbing the last couple of years. I think what makes storytelling effective is establishing one's like humanity, and acknowledging another person's humanity or who your audience is, and making a genuine connection with that. And I think for me, that has been really effective because anything that I choose to do or choose to say is just coming from my heart. In fact, it's interesting, even across my own team, my colleagues joke around with me, JC, like you're so casual when you're addressing these mayors. Maybe we should like do a PR workshop or something. We have not done a PR workshop. But all that to say, no matter what, I'm still the person that's being chosen to represent the organization. And I'm honored in that because I think what I do really well, and I think what's important for any aspiring communicator or someone who wants to catalyze a group of people, whether online or on the ground, to do something and to do it through a given vision that you have created, is to make sure that you communicate to people why you're doing it and why it matters to you and why it matters to them. And also in that process, being mindful of creating opportunities for your audience to engage with you. It's not enough to establish yourself as a thought leader or as an aspiring changemaker, you have to establish a healthy relationship with the communities you're actually storytelling to, because these are the communities you're trying to serve. These
Mhm.
are the communities you're representing. Now, it would be hard to serve and represent them if there's not an effective channel for communication to refine that storytelling to really cater to their needs or to the impact that you're trying to make. And I say all of the time, um, I have my goals and I will be very intentional with how I approach them, but I am not an expert in many of these fields. I am dedicated to working with the community and established thought leaders and decision makers and creating a platform for people to come together and decide for themselves how to help themselves. But I am not the person that is deciding for these people how to like make that impact. And so I think that has been really effective in my storytelling, just empowering folks to develop these thought processes, perspectives to be empowered, as opposed to me in my storytelling conveying what I personally want for them or for that community. If that makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I really appreciate how you articulated that because I think it just like it's very well put together. I think like oftentimes in like not every single role, but especially when it comes to like policymakers and government, like whether you're on the government side or you're on the community side trying to engage with government, I think sometimes we forget that both ends, like we're at the end of the day, we're just humans, we're people,
We're
and
all people.
we're all people, and let's just like, just take a moment and just like connect. And I think I've been doing a lot of work as well, like when it comes to like engaging with government, it's like, okay, this is just a person that decided to go for this role, and their role is to serve community, and like rather than putting them on this like, I think pedestal of like, oh my gosh, like I don't know what I would how do I convey this message, or if I'm super passionate about something, let's just have a conversation. And I feel like that's been very effective in my own experience as well. And I think like you made such a great, like, I think really great visual of like just sort of how even on the other side of like connecting with community, just the right approach to take. And you're not there to direct folks how to be and how to act and how to sustain themselves, but to just engage in conversation and be there for one another. So I really appreciate that. I just want to ask, like, from your perspective, though, what is missing in today's policy conversations, and how can young leaders better shape decision making?
That's a great question. I'll answer the first part. I think what's missing or one of the biggest challenges in policymaking right now is that a lot of your policymakers are busy, like overly capacity constrained. Like it's, I don't, I'm gonna take my personal positionality in terms of politics or ideology away from this. I think objectively, it's hard to represent hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people at a time. And now take that to a state or, like a federal level, hundreds of millions of people, right? Um, and you're not just trying to, or these policymakers and government representatives. I mean, I represent my local council district for the city of LA, and that's over 280,000 people. Um, I'm not just dedicated or not just responsible for understanding what my community needs at this time, but I'm also responsible for understanding how my actions and their actions also will have long-term consequences, even unintended ones, and trying to balance that with fiduciary responsibilities, right? Transparency, ethical practice, and also juggling hundreds, if not thousands, of other constituents at the same time. Because the reality is you can't be everything for everyone. That's just impractical. Um, So that's a very long way of saying the challenge is that a lot of government officials and policymakers are capacity constrained. The opportunity for community members or constituents like youth is to engage in thoughtful conversations with your local representatives. They want to hear you. And I don't think it's a I I want to say that in a lot of coastal cities specifically, there's a lot of opportunity for these for youth, especially, to engage with these policymakers, and it doesn't have to even be directly through um, conventional channels of communication in the policy side. You can engage in thoughtful conversations through local foundations, through your university. They all work with their local government offices. And that I think is a way to ensure having youth go through those channels as alternative platforms for communication can ensure their safety and their security because institutions like universities or like high schools, they are a major constituent of course, to their local government. Um, but they will always be responsible for and prioritize the well-being of their youth or their students. So don't be afraid to ask hard questions, and don't be afraid to enter rooms where youth might not even necessarily occupy normally. Um, for example, for myself, when I was 17, I went from volunteering at the New England Aquarium to now spending my weekends and certain after school hours at City Hall in Boston to meet with local decision makers. And that was facilitated largely through the New England Aquarium and that their partnership with the local government, which was an amazing experience because, again, it was safe. I trusted that community and their partners, and they ensured that my voice was heard and that my priorities were considered. Um, Specifically within LA, there are many opportunities through even neighborhood councils that youth can go to. We in the city of Los Angeles have an entire department dedicated to youth development and community development. So driving civic engagement, decision-making power in city hall and local government for the youth and by the youth. I'm a member of their city youth council, and that is how I represent my youth in this organization. And we have a lot of fun with it. Another layer or thing to consider with these policymakers or government officials who are capacity constrained, they we have to find creative ways of catching their attention. And it's not even necessarily their fault, they're just busy. So a fun like methodology that I've discovered is how can we leverage content creation or online campaigns to not necessarily poke the bear, but just in fun, creative ways say, hey, insert, a government official. These are our thoughts. These are recommendations. These are priorities. And can we now take that into a formal, basic, letter to write to the mayor's office or to the city council, or create a exhibition to represent our concerns in a way that is immersive, that is experiential. And youth, they were really good at that. And I would say we should and we can lean into that. And there's quite a few organizations that are dedicated to doing that here in Los Angeles and around the country. So
Yeah, no, I love that. And I love that you brought that up because I think it's such a positive way or just like an actionable way to get involved. And also like I think it's important to bring up um like use what you know. So like
yeah,
I've been like recently studying about those different like creative campaigns that people could create to get the attention of government or also just community involvement for certain issues. And I think it's, yeah, really back to like what do you know? What are skills you can bring and use that in a creative and fun way, whether it's like making a film or an art exhibition or
Yeah,
yeah, like so or what we're doing right now of just like having a conversation. So I appreciate you bringing that up, and I do encourage listeners to just like check what's happening around like in your city or in your region, or if there isn't much, like mobilize a group together and create something if that's your
yeah,
calling. And yeah, thanks for sharing all that, and really enjoyed listening to your insights as well of like the challenges but also like the bright side of getting involved. And yeah, I hope that it inspires those that are listening to also just see it in that sort of perspective, and not be discouraged by, if they're not getting the level of sort of, what is it, like attention or response, knowing like what it's like for capacity, but to not give up, I think.
right.
Yeah. I want to get a little bit into the foundation that you're running, Kaleidoscope
Yeah.
Foundation. So tell me about it. What's its mission? What's the impact so far? You're the executive director. It's just so exciting. How did it come to be?
Yes. So Kaleidoscope Foundation is a 501(c)(3) nonprofit based in Los Angeles, California. We are dedicated to empowering impact leaders and their organizations here in LA and around the world. Um, to date, we started in 2021. I became executive director in 2023, and co-founder as well. And just in the last 2 years or year and a half, we've reached over 40 million people through our work. We've we've partnered with over 280 companies, organizations, government groups, all around the world to facilitate over 130 events and facilitate over $1.5 million in funding for our like clients and partners. We fulfill our mission specifically through three, I would say, verticals. First off is what we call general services, which is our back office operational support. So how can we help impact leaders in their organization by allowing them to focus on their mission through legal, accounting, finance, management consulting support, so that they can really just focus on that and not be pulled in a million directions to figure out, oh my goodness, are my taxes filed? How do I, am I in line with my incorporation status? How do I even like run payroll, that kind of thing? Or how do you even like establish an organization? To our next vertical, called the Collective, and that's our community and coalition building initiatives, programs like LA Climate Week, where through our experience supporting partners through general services, we were asking ourselves, how do we support the whole leader? A lot of these impact leaders in their organizations, whether they're for profit or nonprofit, they always talk about serving the community, representing the community, building community. But because their heart and souls are so invested and ingrained in their work, I've challenged many of them. I said, what does community actually look like for you? Do you have a community that you can rely on outside of work, that can refill your cup so you can keep pouring more into these other communities? And many of them, because they work so much and the work, there's never ending work to be done. There's always more impact to be made. They just don't have an infrastructure to build a community for themselves. So we started the collective to bring together these like-minded, impact-driven, value-aligned, and also vetted and well-established impact leaders across industries and around the world and across generations as well to meet folks who just want to feel empowered and who want to spend time together. And then that turned into an opportunity to facilitate cross-sectoral collaboration. So programs like LA Climate Week, for example, um, which is an initiative of our Triple E Green Revolution campaign focused on energy, economy, and environment. How can we help municipalities, communities, governments, companies all around the world achieve their sustainability goals? One that intersects with all these different industries. And we've developed this Climate Week framework so that all these impact leaders can work alongside their partners, their local governments, and their like local companies in achieving that, as well as building out a community for themselves. Like acknowledging that outside of this echo chamber or silo that I operate in for my industry, let's say, there's there are other people who are interested in making the world a better place and helping their neighbors, improve their lives, and building a better community for everyone that they in that region that they live in. And it's been really great to see that evolve, and even in the last year. And finally, our last vertical is Project Bloom. So now that we have a two verticals that allow for cross-sector collaboration, kind of this like community-driven approach, where a lot of people are meeting together, and then we have this other vertical, general services, that allows these impact practitioners, let's say, streamline their operations and their impact. A lot of people are generating new ideas, new partnerships, new startups through our programs, and they're like, I want to. How do I launch, my new nonprofit or my next social enterprise if it's a for-profit company? And so we developed a new vertical called Project Bloom, where founders flourish and impact blooms through quarterly pitch competitions, an open source library that provides free entrepreneurial resources online that was slated to come out later this summer. And finally, a biannual incubator program where you're actually driving mentorship, resources, and a dedicated curriculum for a cohort of social entrepreneurs to build and scale their ventures together. And so, yeah, that is how we are achieving our mission of empowering impact leaders in organizations. And I want to also clarify, we are, of course, very, very dedicated to climate action, sustainability, environment, but we are a very, what I like to say, impact agnostic organization, as in, if you are a group, let's say, that is working in female empowerment, to education, arts and culture, to supporting refugees or asylum seekers, we want to support you. And we see that a lot of these social justice issues or social justice causes are very intersectional. And that there just needs to be an organization that can help streamline and be kind of a one-stop shop for these groups to meet other people and find that support. And we really want to provide that for as many of these impact organizations as possible.
Amazing. This is so awesome to hear. And like, yeah, thank you for all this work that you and your team are putting into providing these opportunities for more folks to get involved. So this is a lot of up and coming exciting projects and things that have, been sort of planted. How are you balancing running this foundation with your role in local government while also taking care of yourself? I know we talked a little bit about that before we hit record, and I'd love to get into that. I know it must be just like a learning journey, but
I think this is going to be a journey that I will be on forever, because I will learn how to do that effectively for myself as a single person, single young person. But I know that will change when I have more responsibilities with hopefully an eventual partner and a family, right? So, and this even as my organization grows, or if my role in any kind of policy or government capacity changes or grows. All that to say, my experience in this has been hard. A lot of it because I mean you can see it in my through my lived experiences. I've never had stability, and it's hard to find what works in a work-life balance if you're constantly changing your routine every 6 to 18 or 24 months.
Mhm.
And that's just been my entire life. Um, and I'm finally now in a position where in the last 2 years, I'm like, oh my goodness, I have the capacity now. I have the stability. Like, and if I choose to be nomadic, I can do that. But you know what? LA is my home. And I'm proud, proud, proud LA resident and Angelino now. And I would love to explore what a long-term like life looks like in any given like region. So I'm trying to challenge myself to graduate from this survival mindset that I've been on, where I'm, yeah, again, changing my routine every 6 to 24 months. Um, and go from this mindset where I'm like, okay, let's reach this milestone, and maybe after this milestone, I will be happy. But what's happening is I reach a milestone, I reach a peak, and then my mind goes, okay, what's the next peak to achieve? I'm never actually making the time or proactively trying to just find a way to enjoy my day to day, the actual journey. And I was speaking with one of my close friends about this, and this is a very new journey for me, as in the last 10 to 12 days. Um, I was like, oh my goodness, I don't need to spend 16 hours of the day working Monday through Friday. Um, and it's kind of bizarre to me that like that's the standard for me. And I love my work and I love everything about it. But I realize that if I do that, and I have been doing that for years now, I will get sick every, 2, 3 months.
Mhm.
Um, and you just cannot pour from an empty cup.
Mhm.
And I've been saying that I have such an amazing team and such a great communities around me. They deserve a happy and healthy JC, one that can show up with the right mindfulness, grounded attitude, but one that can smile widely. And I love to smile, you like and make jokes and be goofy. And I just can't do that if I'm always burnt out. So um, I feel now that my soul and my mind and my body is ready to
Mhm.
discover how to enjoy the journey, and find fulfillment in the day to day, as opposed to, this perception that you find, you become self-actualized,
Mhm.
once you reach another peak. So I think self-actualization and that work-life balance and that health and fulfillment, that needs to be built in that, you know, in that process or in that day to day, not in the, when I get a new
Mm.
opportunity or new achievement.
And foundation of all your work. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really happy to hear that that has been like something you've been able to recognize and start to embrace. And as someone who's also been there where it's just like constant like trying to, I guess, find validation from how much like my like idea of success or milestones I'm hitting. And I think what I've learned too is like because I would feel guilty if I took breaks. I would feel anxious if I took breaks. So,
Right.
and I think that's what I've learned too is just gotta be unapologetic about it and take breaks and put your oxygen mask on first, and it will allow you to show up better for your community. And that if anyone makes you feel any ounce of guilt for taking a break, like recognizing that that may not be a healthy person to have in your
Yeah.
and so I'm really glad that you came to that point, and I know it's gonna be like a lifelong battle of like learning and but I think the hardest part is just like getting to that place of starting and recognizing, be like, this is what I need, and just actively working towards that, and rest and breaks and filling your own cup, doing things that bring you joy outside of work. Because with this type of work, I can tell a lot of it's rooted in your own um it's rooted in your own values and what you want to do. And I think a lot of people, a lot of young people can relate to that, especially those that are involved in social impact or climate. It's like especially when you're so young and you don't even know what you're gonna do like for your job yet or whatever, and you're already like out there on the front lines fighting for what you believe in. um it becomes hard to separate that, and um
Right.
I hope that your journey and your reflection also inspires others to just like take that moment of reflection, and yeah, like just don't be sorry for taking breaks. Amazing. Okay, well, I want to get into LA Climate Week because that's coming up soon. I think this episode will come out just before. So I'm really excited that Sustainable Act is a media partner for LA Climate Week 2025. We followed it along last year. Our amazing team member Stevie Gray, who's based in LA, got to cover. Well, he did a like a beautiful like little reflection of his experience at LA Climate Week last year, and so we're excited to be partnering with you this year to bring some more sort of engagement and outreach and media coverage. But for those that are not familiar with what LA
Yes.
Climate Week is, that may be local to the area, what can we expect this year? When is it? What can we expect?
Yes, I'm very excited for the second annual LA Climate Week, and I'm very grateful that the Sustainable Act is a media partner. So just want to echo that. Hooray. But for the folks listening and are interested in getting involved, LA Climate Week is a program that Kaleidoscope Foundation runs as an initiative of the Triple E Green Revolution campaign. And that campaign is focused on energy, economy, and environment. And is really intended to driving localized climate action to help communities and municipalities achieve their sustainability and development goals. Um, Driving real action from the high level or global level and taking it into a local capacity. Our first ever initiative for that campaign was or is LA Climate Week. And this year, beyond just growing and continuing to develop this community-driven platform for local climate action, we've designated it the theme future-proofing and resiliency. In light of the recent LA wildfires and with our eyes towards things, major global phenomenons like the World Cup in 2026 and LA 28. Um, how can we take the momentum that we've developed and established through our community-driven relief efforts, and also what the devastation the community has experienced and what they need, and ensure that their safety, their well-being is prioritized in these redevelopment efforts. That conversations and initiatives going on in the climate space are actively integrated in the conversations going on with the companies and their economic or development goals, and then the local government's development goals, especially around rebuilding and restoration. So I'm very, very excited to announce that LA Climate Week will continue its momentum of community building and generating that excitement and that community, but taking that energy and this movement that we've developed and driving it to tangible action to rebuild a better, more sustainable and resilient Los Angeles.
Amazing. I love that. Yeah, no, I got chills because I know there's just been so much happening with the wildfires, but also just like a lot of touchy subjects as well, politically. And I think that right now, more than ever, community and coming together, how can our audience get involved and support this movement?
Yes, please keep in touch and stay updated. We post and announce regular updates on our Instagram and LinkedIn. And you can also subscribe to our mailing list, which you can find on our website, laclimateweek.com and kaleidoscope.foundation. We also have our Luma calendar live, meaning that the current roster of official LA Climate Week events, you can actually go in and figure out and plan ahead already which events you want to attend, and keep an eye out. There are even virtual events for people who are not based in LA or can't get to LA during Climate Week to get involved and be part of the magic. We also would love to invite folks to partner with us for our campaigns and events, to sponsor as well. This is a very grassroots effort, and any resources and funding that we can get to better reach and support the community is greatly appreciated. And then finally, um, um, just following us along on our journey online. We really appreciate the support, and if people are interested in media opportunities, would love to explore that in ways that are creative, fun, and meaningful.
Amazing. Thank you. Okay, well, let's end this off with what is one message that you'd like to leave for young leaders and activists listening? What would that be?
In the great words of Dr. Ayanna Johnson, what if we get it right? I think as youth, especially, we're often told that we are idealistic, inexperienced, too hopeful, and not pragmatic whatsoever. And that all might be true, but who cares? Because again, what if what if it does work out? Then all the people that have posed those doubts, or even the insecurities that you might experience, that all might be valid. But if you are true to yourself and you put in the time, things just might work out. And take the risk. Do it for yourself. And the thing that we have as youth is that we can our lives are early. If we needed to pivot, if you need to have a safety net, we are in a much better position than our older counterparts to do that. So take advantage of that. That's how I was able to overcome a lot of my own personal challenges and have been able to create opportunities for myself. So that's what I would say.
That is very powerful. Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you so much for this inspiring conversation today. I really, really enjoyed just getting to know you more, and I appreciate you just like, yeah, being so vulnerable and sharing your story. And also thank you for all the work that you're doing. I'm excited to follow along and support you, and um, yeah, I'm just like still reflecting a lot on our conversation, and I hope those that are listening feel the same.
I really appreciate that, Smile. And it's such a pleasure to meet you and to be part of the Sustainable Act. And I'm really excited for everything that we can do together.
Yeah, amazing. So, to our listeners, if you're in LA or you're tuning in from afar, don't forget that the LA Climate Week 2025 is happening from April 6th to 13th. And we'll link the website and all the information in our show notes, so you know how to get involved. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, share it with your community, tag us on social media, and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay engaged, stay hopeful, and keep taking action. Thank you.